This is my 1974 Honda MR50. This I bought as a project dirt bike in, I think it was April or May of 2020, just because it was the quarantine and I was looking for something to do. So I went and I talked to some people. I figured out that this was stashed in someone's barn, neglected, just absolutely awful, as you saw earlier in the video. And I went online and I spent days at a time looking for parts for this thing because it's such a rare bike that it was indeed very hard just to find all the parts I needed to make it function again. And it's quite a neat little bike, but it's a very odd size with everything. So it was quite hard to put it back together, and I got it almost all the way done, except for the wiring on the engine had got pretty fried by the last owner, and it was not in very good shape. And it's, like I said, it's just a pain in the butt to find parts for this bike here. So I got everything except for the wiring done on this bike. I polished up the fenders, redid the seat. I took off the old, just jagged, firm, crusty leather that was on here. I reupholstered the seat, and then I polished up the gas tank, cleaned out inside and out of that. I polished up the exhaust, which I'll show you here in a minute. And then I cleaned out the upper part of the engine and changed oil on the bottom part. And the tires, I was looking for new tires on this for the longest time, but it's such a funky size, and it's from the 70s, so it's obviously not readily available right now, but they only made this bike from 1974 to 1975. So it's a rare bike, which it makes it beautiful to go and resell it, but it's a pain in the butt to try to fix them up when you can't find parts for them anywhere. But I joined a Facebook group on them, which helped me find quite a lot of parts for it. Just being able to talk to other enthusiasts about it, and ultimately I think that helped in the long run. Alright, so when I first started the build, what I went off and I did is I pressure washed it, deep cleaned it good in and out. Then I went online and I started looking for part sources. And then I went back and I made a list of all the things on this bike that I needed to replace or put on, because it was missing these shocks here when I first got it, and it was just awful. And there was no way that I could use that bike without those shocks on it, because when it doesn't have those, this fender is riding on this wheel, and then it makes it impossible to actually drive it. So the shocks were a must, so I spent about $90 on this pair of shocks here, which these are the factory shocks for the bike. So I went ahead and I put those on, and then that was a world of difference right then and there, because the chain fit snug and everything was just, the whole back end looked a lot better then. So after I did the seat and the shocks on here, I took the exhaust pipe here, this whole exhaust pipe and the muffler assembly, everything off, and I sanded them pretty good and deep down with a couple different grit sandpapers. There's still quite a good bit of pitting on these here now, but it's a world of difference from what it was. So that was good progress. And then I went ahead and I freed up these foot pegs, so now they're working fine. The brakes, the back brakes are working perfectly now. The front brakes I still never got to hook up, but that's fine. So it was still totally rideable as it sits, but then I took off the carburetor here, cleaned that out, so that was good and ready to be used. The wiring, as far as wiring on it, it was missing most of the parts, but this would be the only thing that's still left on it, as well as this aftermarket kill switch here. The rest of the wiring, I just had a pain in the butt because I tried to use pit bike wiring, which is very different from a dirt bike wiring, because with the pit bike wiring, you have accessories such as lighting or batteries or whatever the case may be on the bike, but this one was just plain and simple wiring, which was extremely hard to find like many other parts for this bike, but it still has great compression on it. So lots of potential, but I think the next buyer is going to have a wonderful time putting this bike back together. It came a long way from when I first bought it. I redid the handle grips here. These are all new and replaced. And then, like I said, I did the seat, painted up some of the frame on the bike here. The rest of it still got a little bit of pitting on it, but really not in that bad of shape. We're sitting in a barn for the past 10 years or more, so the gas tank, it's in phenomenal shape still. Paint job is still pretty good on that.